The forgotten trenches of Normandy. The battle at Normandy was nothing short of hell. As an American GI, I had seen horrors that would haunt my dreams for life. But there was one encounter, in the labyrinthine trenches of northern France, that was more horrifying than any other. It was a cold, overcast evening. Our platoon had managed to secure a small section of the beach, but the Germans were relentless. Taking a small squad, I was assigned to scout a network of trenches that our intelligence suggested was lightly guarded. This would provide us a vantage point for the next assault. Navigating the trenches was a challenge. Mud was ankle-deep, making each step a laborious effort. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, an eerie mist began to roll in from the sea, enveloping everything in its path. The trenches soon became a winding maze of cold, damp fog, with visibility reduced to mere feet. The sounds of war were distant but ever-present, the sporadic rattle of machine guns, the dull thud of mortars, and the anguished cries of the wounded. But as we ventured deeper into the trench network, another sound began to emerge. A soft, low moan, like the wind, but different, more human. We finally stumbled upon a makeshift bunker. Peering inside, the beam from our flashlights revealed something truly grotesque. A group of German soldiers lay huddled together. But these were no ordinary men. Their uniforms were tattered, their flesh pale and rotting. Their eyes, milky white, stared back at us with a hunger that was palpable. Before we could react, they lunged. Their movements were jerky, almost robotic. The closest one grabbed Private Davies, biting into his neck. The poor lad's screams were cut short as life swiftly drained from his eyes. Panic set in. We fired our weapons, but these creatures were resilient. Bullets seemed to slow them down but didn't stop them. One by one, my squad was overrun. I ran, the weight of my gear and the mud slowing me down, but fear lent me strength. The moans grew louder, echoing through the misty labyrinth. More and more of these zombies appeared from the fog, their lifeless eyes fixated on me. The trenches that were meant to be our path to victory now felt like a tomb. Desperate, I ducked into a side trench. I found a rusty old service hatch leading underground. Without a second thought, I opened it and descended into the darkness below. The hatch led to an underground bunker, seemingly untouched by time. Old lanterns hung on the walls, their oil long dried up. Tables were strewn with papers, maps, and old photographs. It looked like a command center, but from World War I, not our current conflict. How was that possible? On a central table lay a diary, its leather cover worn. I picked it up, hoping it might provide some clue as to what was happening. The entries were in German, but my basic understanding of the language helped me piece together a chilling narrative. The writer, a German officer from the First World War, spoke of a forbidden ritual, an attempt to turn the tide of that war. Using dark arts sourced from ancient texts, they sought to raise fallen soldiers from the dead, making them invincible warriors. But the ritual went wrong. Instead of loyal soldiers, they brought back soulless monsters hungry for human flesh. Realizing their mistake, the surviving officers had sealed the bunker, trapping the horrors they had unleashed inside and hoping they would remain forgotten. I looked around, realizing my grave error in seeking refuge there. The moaning from above grew louder, more insistent. They knew I was there. In a desperate bid for survival, I began barricading the entrance to the underground chamber. Using old wooden planks and discarded furniture, I managed to create a makeshift barrier. I then stumbled upon an old crate filled with dynamite, likely left over from the previous war. An idea formed. I rigged up the dynamite around the bunker, creating a web of tripwires at the entrance. If those creatures got through my barricade, they'd trigger an explosion that would bury them in this cursed place forever. Hours seemed to pass. The moaning grew louder and then softer, as if the creatures were moving away, only to return with reinforcements. The weight of fatigue pulled at my eyelids, but fear kept me awake. Suddenly a thud echoed from above. They were trying to break through. The barricade shuddered with each blow, the moans now deafening. Just as the first plank gave way, revealing the twisted, rotten faces of the enemy, the tripwires were triggered. A deafening explosion rocked the bunker. Flames and smoke engulfed everything. I felt the earth itself shake, then start to collapse around me. I awoke to the sound of voices, not moans. My vision was blurry and my head throbbed in pain. American soldiers stood over me, pulling me from the rubble. They spoke of a massive explosion, visible for miles. By some miracle, I had survived. No trace of the undead soldiers was found. The explosion had sealed the cursed bunker, hopefully for eternity. The higher-ups dismissed my story, attributing it to trauma and the chaos of war. But I knew what I had witnessed, the horrors of man's making, where the lines between life, death, and the unimaginable blur. Though the war eventually ended and I returned home, the memory of that night in the trenches of Normandy remains, a chilling reminder that there are darker things than war itself, lurking in the forgotten corners of our world.